Chapter 2 of Tractate Megillah goes through further laws on the reading of the Megillah scroll on the holiday of Purim. The first Mishnah begins by saying, if you say it out of order, or by heart, or in any language other than Hebrew, it's not a valid reading. But if you read it in a different language for somebody who speaks that language, it's valid, as is somebody who doesn't understand Hebrew but reads the Megillah in Hebrew. If you read the Megillah in segments or while half asleep, it's valid. It's also valid if you coincidentally read the Megillah while writing, expounding on, or correcting a Megillah, and you just end up reading every word, as long as you have the proper intent. It lists many forbidden inks. It must be in Hebrew on parchment with black ink. The Gemara brings sources for all these points. The sources are disputed by several opinions. It also gets into a side point on the Shemona Esrei prayer, the Amidah, and the verse sources for their order, and some further explanation. There's a lot more on the explanation behind the order and sequence of many prayers. When we said that the Megillah could be read in other languages, that meant only in Greek. It lists other languages that you can't read the Megillah in. It also lists a few odd words in foreign languages that were difficult to define and their meaning in context. In regards to pausing in the middle of the Megillah, some say it's invalid if you wait the amount of time it takes to read the Megillah, others disagree. There are points on how many letters from a Megillah can be missing for it to be invalid. It gives definition as to what half asleep means, and when he's reading the Megillah while writing it, he's reading from a full Megillah while simultaneously copying it down. This is argued on. The other types of inks are also defined. New Mishnah. If someone from a town went into a large city, or vice versa, if you plan on returning to your original location, you read the Megillah on the day of your original place of residence. If not, you read Megillah according to where you are now. Some say you're required to read the entire Megillah. Some say just from the verse Ish Yehudi. Some say from the verse Achar Hadvarim Ha'ela. The Gemara says, somebody who won't be returning to his original town before the night of the 14th of Adar, he reads Megillah according to where he is now. Sources are brought. There are similar points and verses discussed, along with on some further points on the Megillah, how Mordechai refused to bow to Haman, as he had effectively made himself an idol, so the miracle occurred, and similar. We follow the rule that you must read the entire Megillah. There's also some quick points on the stitching of the Megillah scroll. There are also some additional points on the formatting of the writing of the Megillah and others. New Mishnah. Anybody is qualified to read a Megillah, besides for a deaf person, an insane individual, or a minor. Some allow a minor. Sources and explanation for all this is brought. The point on if a minor can read the Megillah is debated. New Mishnah. Until the sun rises, you may not read the Megillah. You also may not circumcise, immerse in mikvah for laws of impurity, or similar sprinkling with water after impurity. If any of this is done after the first ray of sunlight, it's still valid. The Gemara brings sources. The timing discussion is spoken about further. The sources and definitions of what constitutes dawn are brought. New Mishnah. You can read Megillah all day, as can you say Hallel, blow the shofar, shake the lulav, say the additional Musaf prayer, offer the Musaf sacrifice in the temple, or the confession with the bull offering, Ma'aser, or Yom Kippur. You can similarly slaughter sacrifices in the temple all day, do the waving of the sacrifices, and many other temple-related sacrifice actions during this time. You can reap the Omer offering all night, and burn sacrificial fat and limbs in the temple. Generally, a mitzvah that must be done through the day can be done all day, and if it must be done at night, it can be done all night. The Gemara brings sources for all these concepts and their proper timings. The general rule, we said, that the mitzvah should be done by day is to include the setting and removing of the spoons by the temple showbread. By doing a mitzvah at night, it's to include the eating of the paschal offering. And that's the end of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 of Tractate Megillah, again, further going through the laws of the reading of the Megillah on Purim, begins with another Mishnah of this topic, although this chapter also discusses the laws of calling people up to the reading from the Torah. You can read the Megillah sitting or standing. You can have one person read it, or two simultaneously, and if your place's custom is to say a blessing, you say one, and if not, you don't need to. Generally, on Mondays, Thursdays, and Shabbos afternoons, we call 3 people up to read from the Torah during prayer, and no more and no less. And we don't read a Haftorah, the ending portion from the Book of Prophets. They say blessings before and after. On Rosh Chodesh, the first day of a month, or Chol HaMoed, the intermediate days of certain holidays, the same rules apply, only we call 4 people up. On holidays, we call up 5. On Yom Kippur, 6, and on Shabbos, we call up 7 people to read from the Torah, no less, but we may do more. We finish by reading a Haftorah, a portion from the Book of the Prophets, and we say blessings before and after. The Gemara says that by the reading of the Torah, you have to stand. Sources are brought. Similarly, you can't have 2 people reading the Torah simultaneously, but by Megillah and the Hallel prayer you can, as those prayers are beloved, so people will focus on them. The blessings on Megillah are listed. We said on Mondays, Thursdays, and Shabbos afternoons during prayer, 3 people are called up to the Torah. Some say this corresponds to the Torah, prophets, and writings. Some say to the Kohen, Levi, and Yisrael, and there are similar points discussed. This goes on for a bit. There's also debate as to how many people are called up to read from the Torah on a fast day, and there's discussion on the blessings that are said. There's more discussion. It mentions an incident that the sage Rav didn't fall to his face during the Tachanun repentance prayer, as it was a stone floor, which is problematic. It's discussed. Also, in regards to bowing, there was this special form of bowing called kiddah, where you stand straight and bow your face straight folded to the ground, using only your thumbs to support yourself. The sage Levi tried to demonstrate this once, and he injured himself and became lame. The remaining holidays are also discussed with similar points, and as to whether the Maftir Torah portion counts as one of the 7 read, which is debated. It's discussed. New Mishnah. There are many specific blessings and prayers that are only done before a minyan, a group of 10 adult men. Dividing the Shema, doing the repetition of the Amidah, the Kohanim giving the priestly blessing, reading the Torah or the Haftorah, making funeral tributes, standing or sitting, the mourner's blessing or the mourner's consolation, the wedding blessing, or saying God's name in the Zimun blessing after eating a meal. For the appraising of consecrated land or worth of a person, you would also need 10 men, one of which must be a Kohen. The Gemara brings sources, and all of these points are discussed. Obviously, you can't consecrate yourself like that. What it means is you're donating your worth, which is appraised to be the value you'd theoretically be sold as a slave for. New Mishnah. Someone who reads from the Torah may not read less than 3 verses. If there's a translator, he shouldn't read more than a verse at a time, otherwise the translator can get confused. With books of prophets, you can read 3 verses at a time. If they're from 3 separate paragraphs, those must be read one at a time. You can skip between sections when reading from prophets, but not from the Torah. The most you can skip by prophets is the amount of time that the translator would have to pause for. The Gemara discusses sources, and there's more points on the reading of the books of prophets. New Mishnah. The one who reads the Haftorah, the portion from the book of prophets, is the one who divides the Shema, does the repetition of the Amidah, and if he's a Kohen, gives the priestly blessing. If he's a minor, his father or teacher do it instead. A minor can read or translate the Torah, but may not do any of the above listed things. Someone who's not properly clothed, he's allowed to divide the Shema or translate, but he can't read from the Torah, do the repetition of the Amidah, or give the priestly blessing. Blind men can translate, and there's a debate if you can divide the Shema, as some require you to have at some point seen the luminaries as it's included in the blessing. The Gemara says that the Haftorah leader gets to lead all of the other services. Some say as an honor as he reads the Haftorah, some say to prevent argument. This is discussed further. It also says that similar laws about needing to be properly clothed when you read from the Torah don't just apply to adults, they apply to minors also. We rule that a blind person can divide the Shema as he can benefit from light. New Mishnah. A Kohen whose hands are blemished cannot raise his hands to give the priestly blessing. Some even prevent it if his hands are stained with dye, as it could be distracting. The Gemara lists a long list of deformities of the hands that disqualify you, and there are similar points discussed. New Mishnah. Someone who refuses to lead the prayer while wearing colored clothing or with sandals is not allowed to go up at all. Also, if you make your tefillin on your head round instead of square, they're actually kind of dangerous. If you bump your head into a wall with them, you could hurt yourself severely, and of course, they accomplish nothing. If the tefillin are at your forehead or palm instead of at your hairline and bicep, this was actually a heretical practice and not allowed. It's also wrong to coat your tefillin in gold or to wear them over your sleeve. The Gemara explains the first rulings that you can't specify to not wear colored clothes or sandals, as then we suspect he's getting some strange heretical ideas. We bring sources for the fact that tefillin must be square only. New Mishnah. There are many forms of blessings listed that you can't say. Someone who tries to interpret forbidden forms of intimacy as metaphorical as opposed to literal, that's forbidden. Someone who interprets the verse to not give your children over to the idol Moloch as meaning you cannot marry an Aramean woman is condemned. The Gemara goes through the forbidden blessings and explains why they're forbidden. Things like the grammar implies you're blessing 2 people or similar. This is largely a repeat of a discussion in Tractate Brachos 33b on ways we don't say blessings, like not with too much redundant adjectives, not repeating certain words that imply you're speaking to 2 people, and similar. The other points are discussed. New Mishnah. When, in the Torah, you read the episode with Reuven and his parents' beds, we read, but don't translate it as it's very frequently misunderstood. We do read and translate the incident with Tamar and the golden calf, but not the second repetition of those events. There's argument if the verses about the Merkava are read as a Haftorah, and the verses made known to Jerusalem, some say we don't read that one either. The Gemara goes through all of these and others as to why they are or are not read. We also read but don't translate the priestly blessing. It also says an opinion that indefinite verses from the Torah should be read delicately. It also says that all mockery is forbidden, besides for the mockery of idolatry, and further points, such as that you're allowed to tell an idolater to take his idol and place it up his... And that's the end of chapter 3.